It seems like every Jojo antagonist has some sort of broken stand ability. Wonder of You is basically the physical embodiment of Final Destination, and D4C pretty much gives Valentine the ability to infinitely spawn. Despite these, I've noticed that manipulation of time is one of the most common stand abilities amongst Joestar antagonists. They always seem to be framed as an unstoppable ability that the Joestars need to overcome, and they almost always fall into the hands of those who seek grand ambitions. But wait, what would happen if the world and King Crimson faced off? Both Dio and Diavolo viewed them as perfectly unstoppable stands. What if Pushi finally decided to betray Dio? Can Made in Heaven overcome the world? Who has the greatest time-based stand? And which would come out on top? The world is the first time-based stand introduced in the series. The world's ability is stopping time for a few seconds. It's changed from time to time, but the world at minimum can stop time for 5 seconds, with it increasing to 9 seconds later on. Dio is the only one who is fully aware and can move in time stop, allowing him to avoid certain attacks and instantly kill those caught within time stop. There's almost nothing that can defy time stop's abilities, unless you possess the same ability. Time stop appears to be spammable, with there only being a couple seconds between each use of the ability. In the perspective of most people, Dio almost looks like he's teleporting. When within time stop, Dio can still grab and interact with objects, like with his signature knife throwing move. Even without time stop, the stand itself has speed and strength comparable to Star Platinum, who can punch a hole through your average man and keep up with light speed attacks. Everything I mentioned about the world also applies to Star Platinum, since they're both essentially the same stand. The world's only weakness is its activation time. Despite being almost instant, it's possible to interrupt the activation of the ability if someone could hit Dio on time. King Crimson's ability is erasing 10 seconds of time from reality. We all have our predetermined movements we must obey according to fate. Within the next 10 seconds, one may try to walk up a flight of stairs. When King Crimson is activated, an individual will already be at the top of the stairs, with them not remembering how they walked up them. This is because the time no longer exists. Only Diavolo has witnessed you walking up them, because he is the only one who can witness erased time. In a fight, this can be used to disorient opponents because of their sudden shift in position and their sudden lack of memory of how it happened. Within erased time, King Crimson cannot interact with any of his surroundings, but he can reposition himself anywhere on a battlefield for the most optimal fighting position. This also makes it so King Crimson is immune to any form of attacks within this state, as they simply pass through him. The substand epitaph increases King Crimson's abilities even more. Since it can basically see into the future, Diavolo can use King Crimson to avoid any misfortune that may come to him. It seems fate itself will also aid Diavolo when he needs it. If Epitaph shows Diavolo cutting off someone's arm and handing it to them, Diavolo won't even have to do anything. The arm will be cut off on its own and be placed in the hand on its own, because in the eyes of fate, he already did the actions needed to accomplish that goal. King Crimson basically allows one to control fate to their own benefit. Made in Heaven's ability is time acceleration. When the ability activates, time itself slowly becomes faster and faster. This doesn't affect living things, but inanimate objects. If one was driving their car, it can quickly begin accelerating, even if the car was moving at 1 mile per hour. Foods that would typically take a week to go bad become rancid in mere minutes. Some ordinary everyday items suddenly become deadly weapons. A baseball may very well become as fast as a speeding bullet. A walk-in freezer can instantly freeze you stiff almost instantly. The time acceleration applies to the entire universe itself, as the sun and moon go through their complete cycle in minutes. Given enough time, every stimuli and event you would have ever experienced is forced into your brain in seconds, as everything around you decays and falls apart. Eventually, time accelerates enough for the entire universe itself to reset and create a whole new world. Pushi can move alongside accelerated time, making him move at potentially light speeds. Made in Heaven, however, is a double-edged sword. If there ever comes a time where Pushi is exposed to something like poison, his own accelerated time will force him to take on the effects much faster than others. Both Mandem and Killer Queen Bites the Dust have the ability to travel back in time. When it comes to Mandem, it can travel 6 seconds back in time when a knob on the wristwatch is turned. The time reversal can be used to confuse enemies and reverse any damage the user may have taken. Mandem can also strategically be used to plan ahead of certain actions. The one major issue with Mandem is the fact that opponents can recall when time is reversed, causing situations where they can easily retaliate. Killer Queen Bites the Dust is basically a much better version of Mandem. It doesn't send people a couple seconds into the past, but several minutes to an hour. Unlike Mandem, nobody except the user will know when time is reversed. Bites the Dust can also be applied with other people, allowing them to go back in time instead. Since they can go back in time much further, Kira has much more time to plan ahead of certain events. I haven't even brought up Bites the Dust's other ability, which is to instantly explode anyone who sees the stand. The attack is undefendable and seems to transcend time itself. Bites the Dust's only weakness is the fact that Kira cannot use normal Killer Queen while it's active, forcing him to undo it to defend himself. Now I'm gonna be honest here, the world stomps every other stand on this list. I'll explain by putting him up against all the other time-based stands I brought up so far. Against Mandem and Bites the Dust, they pretty much stand no chance. If Mandem goes back in time, that won't stop the world from being activated later. Sure, they know the time stop is coming, but there's not exactly anything they can do about its activation. Those who come under the effects of Mandem realize when time is reversed, so that's already a major handicap. All this also applies to Bites the Dust. Even if one were to go back in time, there's no real way to counter time stop. It's even possible to activate time stop before both time reversal abilities are activated. For Made in Heaven, we know that the ability is extremely powerful, based on the fact that it affects everything at a universal scale. Made in Heaven's ability even shortens the window for time stop, and likely even King Crimson too. However, Made in Heaven can still be caught within time stop, despite the acceleration. Jotaro actually almost defeated Pushi with time stop, but couldn't due to Jolene being in danger. If it were more of a fair fight, the world wouldn't have much difficulty in defeating Made in Heaven. Now the most interesting matchup would be against King Crimson and the world. I don't want to begin speculating on what would happen if both abilities activate at the same time, but I'll just come out and say that the world is just better. Let me explain. It's been established that King Crimson is pretty much invincible during skip time, but him not being able to interact with anything comes as both a benefit and a problem. Sure, he's basically invulnerable during this time, but he also can attack, forcing him to get behind enemies and relying on their post-ability confusion to strike. This makes him somewhat predictable, as Bushiroante was able to predict his movements ahead of time. The world has none of these flaws. Not only can he freely interact with the world around it, but its opponents wouldn't be able to predict its next move. The only thing I'd give King Crimson is his Epitaph ability. Dio was right. The world is the greatest stand in the world, no pun intended. It would simply demolish every other stand on this list, with maybe King Crimson standing the best chance. Made in Heaven also comes as a close second in terms of time stands, because of its blinding speeds and its time acceleration ability. Despite the world being the best, the other time stands are incredibly powerful too. It's no wonder the Joestars need to go above and beyond to defeat these threats. Wait, does GR count as a time stand? I didn't even think about that until now. I'm sure he doesn't mind being left out.